The unprecedented search of a former president's home. FBI agents have reported to have recovered a trove of top secret and highly sensitive documents from Donald Trump's estate. Search was basically about certain documents that have been under investigation for a long time in terms of what Trump turned over to the National Archives and what he may have not turned over after his presidential term ended. Trump says the attack is an attempt to stop him from running again for U.S. presidency.
Trump home raid.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We the People. I'm your host, Daniel Arya. In this episode, we'll discuss the controversial FBI raid on Donald Trump's home in the state of Florida at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Raid further raises the stakes for the Justice Department as Trump faces legal problems on multiple fronts. It's also unleashed a massive political storm across the board. Could this be, finally, the end for Donald Trump's political life? Are there people in the government or perhaps the deep state that want to push Trump out? And what are the implications of this for the upcoming midterm elections? Now, as usual, we're pleased to have our two guests on our show, Margaret Kimberley, Executive Director and Senior Columnist at Black Agenda Report, who's joining us from New York City, and Max Parry, Independent Investigative Journalist, joining us from New York City as well. Stay tuned.
Donald Trump is back in the headlines again. That's after the extraordinary FBI raid on the former president's residence in Florida. Trump was not at his home when federal agents moved in. Reacting to the unprecedented search, the former president warned of dark times for the U.S. and came out slamming what happened. It is prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024.
Now, at the heart of the matter is whether this investigation could lead to criminal charges against Trump and ultimately disqualify him for running again for president. Could this raid, as Trump puts it, be an attempt to stop him from running again for office?
Well, that is to be determined. We don't know what was in these documents. He has not been charged with the crime. So that is unclear right now. But this is more of a political issue. It's as much a political issue as a legal issue. So, for example, he could be charged with something, and that might keep him from running. And that makes it a political issue as well.
Now, Donald Trump has seen previous significant charges against him. He was impeached twice, which was unprecedented, but he survived. Some say he even came out stronger than before. So how serious is this new development for Donald Trump?
Well, Mr. Trump has been the subject of many investigations before. He's overcome many hurdles in the past, both during his incumbency and when he was a candidate. He's been the subject of a couple different investigations before with the Russia collusion scandal and the impeachment trial. But to have a former sitting president raided by the FBI is truly unprecedented in American history. So if he were to actually be charged with a crime and certainly charged with the Espionage Act, that would obviously prevent him from being able to run again in the 2024 election, which I think this is ultimately all about.
The FBI conducted the raid under a search warrant that cited 3 statutes, namely the Espionage Act, the obstruction of justice and criminal handling of government records. One potential charge carries a 20-year term in prison. It's worth mentioning that when it comes to potential violations of Espionage Act, despite its name, it compromises much more than actual spying, including refusing to return the classified documents.
It remains unclear what the nature of this classified document probe by the feds was. We only know that documents related to nuclear weapons were supposedly sought by the feds because of these anonymous leaks to the corporate media, the likes of WAPO and the New York Times. But the validity of those claims is dubious because they're coming from faceless, anonymous intelligence officials. We have no knowledge of whether it's true or not. There's a lot of conjecture and speculation about whether he may have taken nuclear secrets to be given to a state actor like Israel or the Saudis, for example. But again, this is purely conjecture.
One of the provisions in the warrant, namely the U.S. Code 2071, has also attracted particular attention. The provision is a federal law prohibiting someone from destroying government documents. It says explicitly that anyone who does this will be fined or imprisoned for no more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. However, a lot depends here on the contents of the documents in question.
So I think the political establishment in Washington is very concerned about the possibility of Trump being able to make a successful political comeback, even after his removal from social media platforms and the means of communication. So I think they're resorting to other means here, and there's a shared interest between the security state and the political establishment and the Democratic Party to prevent Trump from being able to run again. So I think this is what this is all really about.
No matter what conviction Donald Trump gets, if any, many will view the entire episode as a politically motivated issue and not just a mere criminal probe. Now, for Trump supporters, this is just another attempt to pull him down, and for his opponents, another case of a man with unending corruption and scandals.
There's this history of Trump being investigated only to find out that the charges against him don't amount to much. So, for example, for years we were told about this Steele dossier that implicated him in collusion with the Russian government. Well, how did it turn out? It turned out the dossier was paid for by the Democratic National Committee's law firm, which means it was tainted and nothing in it should have ever been believed. We were told if we saw his taxes, that would prove Russian collusion. Well, that didn't happen either. So there's this history of trying to negate his influence with these charges, which in the end don't amount to much. So that could be the case this time.
The search was approved by the highest levels of the Justice Department. The White House says that President Joe Biden was not aware of the search beforehand. Now, considering the abysmal approval ratings of President Biden, do you think that there are elements in the government that want to push Trump out?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Trump, he was president before. He could be president again. The problem is that he's a very divisive figure, a very polarizing figure. So he attracts many people, but he also repels as many people as he attracts. But having said that, it's quite possible that he could be president again, given that Biden is so unpopular.
The FBI says it seized 11 sets of classified documents from some 15 boxes of records at Trump's home. Some of these records could be very top secret, including nuclear documents. That's the news that many were waiting for. Now, Donald Trump could indeed be in hot water if he's charged for this, but what about his supporters, and how would they cope with this if he gets convicted?
I think the possible legal prosecution of Trump and the disqualification of his the prevention of his being able to run again would inevitably produce more of the civil disorder and civil disturbance and social unrest that we saw the last election after he was defeated by Joe Biden, especially with the terrible economic state of the country and the decline of America as an empire, the decline of U.S. hegemony abroad, with all that as a backdrop, I think it would be the perfect formula for more, an explosion of social unrest and political violence in the United States.
Reports also indicate that Trump's legal team may have lied about classified records in his residency. According to New York Times, one of Trump's attorneys signed a statement back in June telling the Department of Justice that all sensitive material at Mar-a-Lago had been returned. As what Trump has to say about all of this, he claims that he declassified the records that the FBI has recovered. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton says Trump had a habit of grabbing intelligence documents, and God knows what he did with it.
Well, regardless of one's opinion of Trump, I don't see how any serious analyst could see this raid at Mar-a-Lago as anything other than the clear politicization and weaponization of, federal law enforcement agencies and the Department of Justice by Trump's political opponents in the Beltway establishment, which I think really fears his ability to make a comeback and win the presidency again.
Now, there's been an explosion of grievances inside the Republican Party since news of this raid and search broke. And you saw the Republican Party in many quarters rallying around Donald Trump, saying that this man has seriously been wronged.
So I think every Republican believes that the FBI, when it comes to Trump and other organizations, have lost their mind.
Trump's supporters also crowded outside Mar-a-Lago and expressed anger at the search raid.
I think it's another unjust, made-up thing like the impeachment hoaxes.
President Trump is investigated because they're scared that he's running, and he will win again.
I know what this is all about. Weaponize DOJ, weaponize FBI, weaponize the IRS.
But not everybody was angry. There was also Trump's opponents.
He deserves this. He's a criminal. He has done nothing but negativity for our country, and we came here to celebrate.
The United States is already a polarized and divided country. Many of Trump's supporters and his fellow Republicans have said that he is yet again targeted by an establishment that wants him gone. Republican Arizona Representative Paul Gosar has tweeted that he supports a complete dismantling and elimination of the FBI. If Trump gets disqualified, how do you think a polarized America would react to such an outcome?
I think his supporters would be very angry, and they would be motivated to come out and vote against whomever the Democratic candidate was. But other people are equally motivated. That's the problem with Trump. The fact that he has this very powerful hold on people, both in a negative way and in a positive way. But I also think there would be increased cynicism. There are a lot of people, they may not be Trump supporters, who see this as a political move, as a political attack on Trump. And I think their cynicism, even among those who are not Trump supporters, could impact the turnout that the Democratic candidate would need in 2024.
Trump's home raid and the allegations that he mishandled classified documents have another interesting turn. For years, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who ran alongside of Trump in 2016 presidential election, was fiercely condemned by Trump and the right for using a private email server to conduct government business. Republicans never passed up on a single opportunity to attack Clinton at that time. Trump, in particular, made the term "lock her up" into a Republican rallying cry.
I think she should be in jail for what she did with her emails, okay? She should be in jail.
Hillary Clinton is disqualified from being the commander-in-chief.
For others,
The consequences of misusing classified information have been swift and serious, but not for Hillary Clinton.
I can tell you is this: had you done it, or had I done it, I'd be off the Intelligence Committee. My classification would have been removed.
Instead of being held accountable, Hillary is running for president.
Now, Hillary Clinton's case resulted in an FBI investigation, and in a letter to Congress just days before the 2016 presidential vote, former FBI Director James Comey said that Clinton had been, quote, extremely careless when it came to handling her emails. So are U.S. politicians just too careless when it comes to classified information, or are they perhaps just too corrupt?
Well, they're very corrupt. I mean, Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, did not use the computer server, the State Department's computer server, and kept her own server in her home, which to me is proof of some sort of corruption, proof that she was hiding something.
Trump appears to be enjoying the attention that he gets from all of this. After all, he himself broke the news about the search on his home. He clearly sees an opportunity here. He's trying to galvanize his supporters, asking them for money, and alleging the government is out to get him. As a former TV celebrity, Trump knows how to manipulate media for its own advantage. Is he once again using the media attention to drive his political agenda?
Throughout the entire Trump era, he's been the subject of several investigations, and in the long run, they've only ended up helping because he's carefully crafted this, persona of and image of himself as a political outsider up against the Beltway establishment.
The attention could also be of significant value for the GOP ahead of a crucial midterm election. Republicans supporting Trump are now more determined to come out in force and vote for GOP candidates in November elections. Democrats, too, are trying to whip up support for their nominees by portraying Republicans and Trump as a bloc destroying the country.
I think so. Republicans have a history of better participation in these midterm, these so-called off-year elections. They are more likely to turn out than Democrats. That's always true. And this year, if they are convinced that there's some sort of a political act, that these charges against Trump, the search warrant, if they believe that this is more political than legal, then yes, I think they will be inspired to turn out.
Now, the outcome of this entire episode does not look very good for America. If Donald Trump gets indeed convicted, you have a former president that's abused top secret documents. And on the other hand, if he is not charged with something serious or simply gets away with this, you have a judicial system that is now looked upon as corrupt and impotent and basically very politicized. So neither scenario bodes well for the U.S., and if anything, it may hasten a now well-spoken decline for the nation. And that was the show, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Daniel Arya. Join us again next time for another episode of We the People. Bye-bye for now.